Hey everyone, I am back. This is George with the Paper Panda Crafts. I actually remembered to turn on my microphone this time. Yay! So, anyway, on today's project we are going to be making this insert picture here, or at least a variation of it. So I'm going to be using different paper because I don't have that paper anymore, and I'll be using different feet just to change it up, but it's the same basic concept. So, so what we're going to be using is this really nice paper. We're going to be using 2 sheets of this. Hopefully there we go. This is actually out of a new paper pad I picked up from Joann Fabrics. It's called Old World Stack, and it just has a lot of these old looking. Give you a quick flip through. These kind of just old pattern. Almost looks like old wallpaper, which is really nice. It's really old and vintage, old world looking, which is really my style, if y'all haven't noticed. So yeah. So anyway, this is going to be using chipboard. This is medium weight chipboard, just a single layer. We're going to be using 4 2 and 15/16 by 5 7/8 pieces of chipboard, and 1 5 7/8 by 5 7/8 piece of chipboard. These may have to be trimmed down just depending on how your folds come out and stuff like that, and especially these will more than likely have to be trimmed down just to make them fit, because you want them to fit snugly, but you don't want them to be too tight to where things bow or things are crooked and things like that. So I've already done my scores, and what I've done is I scored at 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches on all 4 sides, and then I have marked out the areas. I don't know if y'all can see that. I've marked out the areas that I'm going to be cutting away. So you can take your X-Acto knife, or in my case my finger blade, and I'm going to be cutting away these parts here. So I'm going to find my score line, which is very difficult on white paper. And go down all the way. And find your next score line. Do the same thing. And we're going to go ahead and angle these in a little bit. Just to make them easier to fold and put together. And we will cut away this piece. Put this in the trash can before I make a mess. And we're going to cut this down just so we don't have so much bulk when we're putting it together. And then I'm going to angle this little piece in here just ever so slightly, just because it never fails whenever I try to fold those over. They always want to overlap, or they always want to just butt up against each other too tightly, and it doesn't look good. So I just angled in just ever so slightly, just a hair. So I'm going to do that to the other sides, and for the sake of time I will be right back. Okay, so this is what you should end up with, and this is what we're going to be making our box out of. So you can go ahead and fold and burnish your scores. And of course, I don't have my bone folder. And what I really like about this paper is that it's really nice and thick, and it folds really nice, and it's textured. It's really nice. I'm going to fold these back for now, so that way they're not in the way. Okay, so now we're going to put together our box. Okay, grab my reptile glue, and we're just going to put a little bit of glue right here. Okay. And we'll get everything nice and lined up. And I don't want to put so much glue that you oversaturate the paper and then it gets all mushy. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you're using a decent paper that won't get so mushy with just a little bit of glue. So we're going to take our bone folder, get that nice and smoothed out. Make sure your corners and your edges are nice and square. And we will line up our other side. And once you get it lined up, you can use your bone folder, get everything nice and smooth. And again, the reason I like using glue, because it gives you that little bit of wiggle room to make your adjustments before it sets up. I have something on my bone folder that is making it stick. Hate that. Alright, that looks good. And we will do the same thing to the other side. Alright, so here is our box base. So now we're going to take these, we're going to set this aside, and we're going to take these and we're going to cover them in our decorative paper. We're only going to cover one side because that's the only side that's going to be showing. So I have an extra piece here, 12 by 12 piece. For the box, this took up a whole 12 by 12 sheet, so you don't need to do any trimming on this. So you're going to take this, you can use glue, you can use tape, whatever you'd like to use, and I'm basically going to get my stuff out of the way here. Basically going to see where and how these fit the best. And yeah, that looks like it'll work. Okay. So I'm going to get these covered and I will be right back. Okay, so while I was away, I had a slight change of plans. So for the inside, I'm going to be using a different pattern, because while I was doing it, I realized, you know what? I want something a little different than the outside, just to break it up a little bit. So I'm going to be using this pattern that's a little bit lighter, but still in the same color scheme. And I've also got these two pieces because I realized I didn't have the pieces for the dividers on the inside. So these are 2 1/4 by 5 7/8. This one I'm going to cut in half once I find out where I'm going to place this first one. It'll all make sense in a little bit. So I'm going to get these glued or taped down. I'll probably glue them. I've already glued these down to this sheet here, and I'm going to cut them out real quick. So I'm just going to use the chipboard as my guide to get them cut. If I could cut straight, that would be great. There we go. So I've got my bottom, and I just glued them down. I didn't tape them or anything like that. I just used my reptile glue. And I'm going to cut these along this edge here. And here. There we go. And that is a good piece for scrap. Don't throw, I mean, y'all know, don't throw these big pieces away. Alright, so again, I hope I'm keeping everything in frame. If not, I do apologize. I'm still somewhat new to YouTube. So, anywho, we're going to get these all cut out. But yeah, I'm checking up on my little tiny screen on my camcorder to make sure that I'm in frame, but sometimes I might not be. I apologize. Get everything all nice and trimmed. Try not to cut a piece of your chipboard off like I did. If you do, it's fine. Not the end of the world. As long as it's not a big giant chunk, you'll be fine. Now the only thing with gluing the paper to your chipboard like I did is if you put too much glue, it has a tendency to make the chipboard want to warp, and that's not a big deal. As it dries, it should straighten itself back out, or you can just kind of bend and flex it to get it back to where you want it. It'll be fine. It'll, like I said, it should dry and straighten itself back out. So, again, not the end of the world. Okay. Alright, isn't that pretty? These papers are so pretty. If you have a chance, if you have a Joann fabric near you, go find that paper pad because it's really, really pretty, and it's nice and textured, and it's really good. I like it. Alright, excuse me. So for these two pieces here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. Decent amount of glue, not too much. And I'm just going to place it just maybe about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge, to where it's flat up against this bottom edge, but kind of away from this far edge here. And you will see why. And I'm going to do the same thing on this opposite side. And now we're going to take our finger blade or your X-Acto knife, whatever cutter you're using, follow here to the corner, and then you're going to flare out. And you can just go ahead and come all the way down. We'll get rid of this piece. And same thing on this side. We're going to do this, come to the point, and we'll flare out, get rid of that. And other side, flare out, and flare out. Okay, and I don't know if I want to save that piece or not. I guess I'll hang on to it. I'm such a hoarder with those things, I swear. Alright, so now once we have our pieces like this, if you want to do this a different way, by all means, this is just the way I do it. It's what makes sense in my head. Do it however is more efficient for you. There's no right or wrong, as long as the end result is the same. So I've got my glue. I'm just going to take this and fold it over like so. Like that. Get everything all nice and worked in. And we're going to do the same thing to this other side. And like so, like that. Flip it over, get your glue nice and spread. And now we can trim. There we go. We have one of our dividers. Now, like I said, one of these I am definitely going to be cutting in half because I'm going to have one long section and one short section, and I will trim that once I figure out how I'm going to position the other. So you'll see. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get our bottom glued in, and you want to do a test fit because, like I said, depending on how you fold this, you may have to trim your chipboard just a little bit. So test fit, that fits like a glove. And if you really, I guess if you don't really want to glue this in, you don't have to, because these pieces will be sitting on top to hold it in, but I just feel like adding glue just adds a little bit more stability to it. So get your glue, put a healthy amount covering everything, but you don't want to put so much that you saturate it. There. And we're going to drop it in and press that down. Okay. So if you have like little gaps or things like that around the edges, you probably can't see it, but I can. Don't worry about it because again, you're going to put be putting these in, and it's going to hide all that, so it doesn't really matter. It's nothing to stress about. So these, I will say, your sides are going to be a little tricky, not going to lie, because you want them to fit snugly, but you don't want them to make it bow and things like that. So, and I can already tell I've cut these a little too tall, so I'm going to test fit these before I trim them all down. I'm probably going to trim off about maybe like 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to trim these down, and I will be right back. Okay, I am back. So I went ahead and trimmed off about, I would say it's a little over 1/8 of an inch off the top. I mean, as you can see, that's all I cut off. Excuse me, I did use my trimmer that I used to cut on my chipboard, so it wasn't that hard to cut off, but for those of y'all that don't have an industrial trimmer, which most people don't, I get it. It was definitely worth my purchase on Amazon. I love that trimmer, cutter, whatever you want to call it. But just if you want to get your ruler, hold it down real tight and just use your X-Acto knife and cut off what you need to cut off. And then use the one that you started as your template, so that way all the other ones are the same. So, also, if you're using a paper that has a pattern on it, try to make sure that your pattern is facing all the same way when you put these in, because you don't want it going every which way, which, if that doesn't bother you, by all means, go for it. But me personally, it would bug me to see a pattern going every which way. That's just me. So, I'm going to pitch these, and I'm going to go ahead and glue in my sides. So I'm going to do the two across from each other first, and make sure everything is nice and flush. Get your bone folder, get everything worked in. Make sure your bottom is nice and flat. Everything's nice and squared up. And that looks good. Okay, so now I can do the other side. And the reason I'm doing this is just because it makes it easier to get your last pieces, or the other two sides in, and trim them down appropriately. Okay, and same thing. We're going to make sure our bottom is pressed up nice and tight against it. And again, that's why I like using the glue. Kind of gives you that wiggle room to make your adjustments. Okay, so we got our sides glued in. Now I'm going to take this and see where I need to trim. So it's going to fit in there very snug. As you can see, I don't want to push it any further because it will end up tearing that corner. So I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to use my new heavy-duty cutter, cutting blade from Fiskars. I picked this up at Michael's with my 40% coupon. It's the only one I found, so I'm like, oh wow, so it's pretty neat. So I think I'm just going to take off about 1/8 of an inch. Just take off little bits at a time, because remember, you can always take it off, but you can't put it back. And just keep going over it until you cut through. Alright, and that actually looks good. Wow. Yay me. I didn't mess up. So now I'm going to use this as my template to cut this other one. Okay, and I'm just going to do another test fit just because, for kicks and giggles. Alright, everything looks good. Alright, so now fit this in there, same process. We're going to make sure our bottom is nice and tight up against it. Take our bone folder, work everything in, and then we'll repeat, wash, rinse, repeat on the other side. And so now our little flaps can be folded over like that, and it kind of gives just a nice little finish to your box. And that is why I trimmed inwards a little bit on these, which I didn't do it enough, because I don't want it folding over on itself. So I'm just going to fold them over, make sure that everything fits okay. You can already tell that one's going to be a problem. You just want to cut off a little bit at a time. Don't go crazy, you know, trimming off everything, and then you're left with, you know, you're left with a big gap. Because like I said, you can always take it off, but you can't put it back. So that should be good enough. I'm going to get some glue on these. Get all these folded over. And again, you can use glue, you can use tape, whatever you'd like to use. I just use glue because with this project, it feels like, to me, I need a lot of wiggle room. Like I'm always changing something. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on all 4 sides. Okay, get all your edges nice and squared off. And there we have it. There's our completed box. And so now we're going to take these, our little divider pieces, and we're going to fit them in here. Not sure where I want it. And you don't want it, you want it to fit tight, but you don't want it so tight that it pushes your box apart. Alright, so I'm going to trim off a little bit. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit, because it's just a hair too big, causing a little bit of bowing in the sides of my box. So I'm going to take off about a 1/16 of an inch, if that much. Instead of wearing down the blade on my finger blade, I'll use this one. Okay. There we go. So it's nice and snug, stands up on its own, but it's not pushing my sides out. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and glue it into place. I'm just going to take a little bit of glue and run it along this raw edge of my chipboard. Try not to get glue all over the place, which is sometimes impossible for me. And we're going to do it on all 3 raw sides of the chipboard. Okay, and we're going to stand this up. I'm going to look at this so I can get it adjusted where I want it. Make sure it's up straight and that it's not crooked. Alright, and that looks good to me. And we're going to soak up any extra glue. Try not to knock it over. Whoops. Alright, so once you get it in place, you're just going to hold it for a second, just to make sure everything is nice and set up. And it will just take it a minute, not even that long, for this glue to get tacky enough to hold in place. So just keep holding, keep holding. In fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to cheat. Put my tape on top of it, and that should be enough weight. And I'm going to get some Distress ink.
A few moments later.
Okay, so this should be okay. Like I said, it doesn't take that long for it to get tacky enough to hold, for it to be, you know, good enough to handle. So I'm going to use some Distress ink from Tim Holtz to kind of hide these white parts, because this paper does have a white core, and my edges and stuff like that. But I don't know if I want to use this. Let me test it on a piece of scrap. So this is mowed lawn. That looks kind of cool. Or do I want to use the tea stain? Decisions. I think I will go with the mowed lawn. So I'm going to take this, and all I'm going to do is just run it down my edges and on my corners. Alright. So now we need to figure out how much to trim off of this other piece. Because I'm going to divide this other section, I guess this larger section. So we're going to take our ruler and we'll cut it down to 3 1/8. And yes, I use these giant kindergartner pencils. I like them, I think they're really cool. They're easy to hold too. Alright, so hopefully that is straight. If not, I have another side to play with. And I'm just eyeballing it. It looks straight to me. Okay. And still a little too big, which is okay. We will trim off a little bit. So I'd rather it be too big than too small. Okay. So that fits about the way I want it. So same thing, we're going to put some glue on all 3 of our raw edges. Okay, and I'm going to face this towards me so I can see what I'm doing. And so same thing, we're just going to hold it in place. Just squeezing and pressing and make sure that everything is nice and straight. Like I said in a previous video, I like things to look professional, especially if I'm going to be selling them. You know, if people are paying me money for something, I want them to look good. You know, I know that they're handmade, but I don't want that to be an excuse for shoddy workmanship. You know, somebody's giving me money. Yeah, I want it to look handmade, but I don't want it to look handmade. If that makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a line of glue down here along the bottom, and that will just add a little bit of extra. And the cool thing about Reptile glue is that it does dry clear. So if you're worried about it, you know, don't worry about it. Because it dries clear, so you don't have to worry about it looking bad. Now on darker papers you will see like a film after it dries, so you definitely want to clean it up on darker papers, but on like lighter papers and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it. And you can go in if you totally submerged your edge like I did. You can go in with your paper towel and clean up any excess. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so this is our finished box. So you can use this, you know, you can do this however you want. If you want to put 4 compartments, if you want to just have 2, if you don't want to have any at all, it is all up to you. This is just how I like to make them. I like to have 1 large compartment and 2 small ones. People can put their wallet in there, they can put their keys, they can put their jewelry, whatever they want to put. They can put loose change, whatever. Alright, so now comes the fun part, and that is decorating. So I'm going to do it real simple. I'm going to be using some metal feet. If y'all don't have these metal things like I have, decorate it however you want. You don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. Make any changes you want to make. So I'm going to use these metal feet. These are antique bronze. And these little handles I'm going to put on the front and on the back. And I think that's really going to be it. I'm not going to put too much embellishment on this because I really like it to be nice and simple and clean. I don't want it to be all decked out and, you know, stuff all over the place. I like my things to be nice and neat and functional, and yeah, functional is my thing. Alright, so I'm going to take these, use my reptile glue, and this will hold metal onto paper. So get that on there just like that. Sorry, I keep going out of frame. And these feet, like 90% of everything else that I have, I found on Amazon. I will try to link them below if they are still available. I got them quite a while ago, probably about maybe a year ago. I'm sure they're still available from someone. And I used a lot of glue on that one. It's coming out everywhere. Alright, and we're going to give these a few seconds, well, more than a few seconds, a few minutes to get kind of stuck. And what we can do in the meantime is, because I don't want these little holes to be showing, I'm going to look for some little miniature brads that I know I have somewhere. And I think, yes, they are in here. So I'm not going to be punching a hole in this. I'm just going to be using these to fill in the holes on my drawer pulls. And same thing with the drawer pulls. I got them off of Amazon. I get so much craft stuff off of Amazon. I'm sure everyone else does too. So I'm looking for 4 of the same color. I think those are them. My contacts keep going blurry, so that doesn't help. Alright, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brad and I'm just going to put it through the hole and bend it out. And I'll kind of bend it to an angle to hide there. That just looks a lot more finished than leaving the holes open, in my opinion. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky, but that's just me. if you want to leave them open, by all means, leave them open. But my intention with this one is to put it up for sale on my Etsy shop. Just search the Paper Panda on Etsy. And also the link will be in the description box below if you would like to buy this. Alright, so I'm going to stand this up. That glue should be held, or should be on there enough. And put a little few dollops of glue right here. And sorry guys, I don't have the best lighting. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm trying. And try and get this somewhat centered. And I'm sorry I'm bringing this to me because I need to see. Okay, that looks centered to me. And now I will do the same thing on this one. So once I have this done, I will glue it on the other side the exact same way, and I'll be right back with the finished product. Alright, so I am back, and I have glued on the other handle on the other side, and like I showed previously, I took that ink pad and just kind of went around my edges with it just to kind of give it some kind of look and darken it up a little bit, and this is a finished product. So tell me what you think. Hopefully y'all liked this. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, leave me a comment, tell me if you liked it, tell me what you'd like to see in upcoming videos. Like I said, the link for my Etsy shop is in the description box below, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe. So, like I said, the link for my Etsy shop is in the description box. If you would like to purchase this, it will be listed on there. It is free shipping in the United States. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye!